morning, scholars. Today is April 9th, 2020, and this is your reading video for the day. We will not have a reading video tomorrow. Probably don't know this, but you weren't supposed to have school tomorrow before school was canceled every day because it is Good Friday. So enjoy a break tomorrow from your reading video and your daily writing journal. The only thing that I'll be posting tomorrow is a couple of Bible stories, because the point of Good Friday is to help us remember Jesus's death, and I want you to be able to do that tomorrow. But for reading today, you have a new vocab word, and it's on the board: repatriation. I should look up how to say that, but I think that's how you say it, repatriation or repatriation. And that word just means to go or to be sent back to your own country. So for example, Mama and Esperanza are from Mexico, and if someone was to exercise repatriation, they would be sent back to Mexico, even if they didn't want to. Sometimes the government will do this because they're afraid of not having enough jobs in a certain area, or people don't have the correct paperwork. But as you can imagine, that would be very sad for Esperanza and Mama. So we'll look out for that word as we do our reading today. And the map I can post the whole vocab card on this assignment, and you can see there's just arrows where different states, there's arrows pointing back to Mexico. So people have been sent back to their homes. We'll talk more about that when we get there in the text. Yesterday, when you guys were reading, we collected evidence to support a line of thinking. And today we're going to continue to collect evidence to support a line of thinking. And you should have written down in your notebooks that the line of thinking is you can be strong no matter what. And you have several pieces of evidence already. Today we're going to collect more evidence, so go ahead and pull out your reader's notebook. Write evidence on the top of the page, just like I have it on my whiteboard. And you can go on your other page if you still have room in your evidence collection box, but go to a clean page if you need more room. And then we are going to start reading and looking for evidence on chapter 10, page 158. Chapter's called Las Papas, which means potatoes. Okay. Goes like this. Esperanza almost never left Mama's side. Pause. Sorry to stop so soon, but remember back to yesterday, there was a dust storm, and Mama got really sick because too much of that dust went in her lungs. Okay, now we'll keep going. Esperanza almost never left Mama's side. She sponged her with cool water and fed her teaspoons of broth throughout the day. Miguel offered to take over the sweeping job for her, but Esperanza wouldn't let him. Irene and Melina arrived each morning to check on Mama and to take the babies. Alfonso and Juan put up the extra layers of newspaper and cardboard in the bedroom to keep out the November chill. And Isabel drew pictures to hang on the walls because she did not think the newspaper looked pretty enough for Mama. The doctor came back a few weeks later with more medicine. She's not getting worse, he said, shaking his head, but she is not getting better either. Mama drifted in and out of fitful sleep, and sometimes she called for Abuelita. Esperanza could barely sit still, and she often paced around the small room. One morning, Mama said weakly, "Esperanza." Esperanza ran to her and took her hand. "Abuelita's blanket," she whispered. Esperanza pulled the valise from under the bed. She had not opened it since before the dust storm, and saw that the fine brown powder had even found its way deep inside, as it had found its way into Mama's lungs. She lifted out the crocheting that Abuelita had started the night Papa died. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Had it only been a few months? She stretched out the zigzag rows. They reached from one side of Mama's bed to the other. But they were only a few hands wide, looking more like a long scarf than the beginnings of a blanket. Esperanza could see Abuelita's hairs woven in so that all of her love and good wishes would go with them forever. She held the crocheting to her face and could still smell the smoke from the fire. The faintest smell of peppermint, Esperanza looked at Mama, breathing uneasily. They both needed her. Looked at Mama, breathing uneasily, her eyes closed. It was clear that she needed Abuelita. We're on page 160. They both needed her, but what was Esperanza to do? She picked up Mama's limp hand and kissed it. Then she handed a strip of zigzag rose to Mama, who clutched it to her chest. What had Abuelita told her when she had given her the bundle of crocheting? And then she remembered. She had said, "Finish this for me, Esperanza, and promise me you'll take care of Mama." After Mama fell asleep, Esperanza picked up the needlework and began where Abuelita had left off. 10 stitches up to the top of the mountain, add 1 stitch, 9 stitches down to the bottom of the valley, skip 1. Her fingers were more nimble now, and her stitches more even. The mountains and valleys in the blanket were easy, but as soon as she reached the mountain, she was headed back down into the valley again. Would she never escape this valley she was living in? This valley of Mama being sick? What else had Abuelita said? After she had lived many mountains and valleys, they would be together again. She bent over her work, intent, and when hair fell into her lap, she picked it up and wove it into the blanket. She cried when she thought of the wishes that would go into the blanket forever, because she was wishing Mama would not die. The blanket grew longer and Mama grew more pale. Women in the camp brought extra skeins of yarn, and Esperanza didn't care that they didn't match. Each night when she went to bed, she put the growing blanket over Mama, covering her in hopeful color. Lately, it seemed Esperanza could not interest Mama in anything. "Please, Mama," she begged, "you must eat more soup. Please, Mama, you must drink more juice. Mama, let me comb your hair. It will make you feel better." But Mama was listless, and Esperanza often found her weeping in silence. It was as after all of that hard work in getting them there, her strong and determined mother had given up. Oh, I'm going to check that the video is still working. Good. This book is getting even sadder than it was. We're going to stop there for a moment because I think there are a few pieces of evidence that we could write down in our evidence collection box. Something that I think of is that Esperanza is not leaving Mama's side. So even though Mama is feeling pretty weak, Esperanza is still showing strength. So I'm going to write that down in my evidence collection box, that Esperanza does not leave Mama's side. Go ahead and write that down too. If you need more time, just pause the video. Okay, and we're going to pick up again on page 162. The fields frosted over and Mama began to have trouble breathing. The doctor came again with worse news. She should be in the hospital. She's very weak, but more than that, she is depressed and needs nursing around the clock if she is to get stronger. It is a county hospital, so you will not have to pay, except for doctor's bills and medicines. Esperanza shook her head no. The hospital is where people go to die. She began to cry. Isabel ran to her, crying too. Hortensia walked over and folded them both into her arms. No, she isn't going to the hospital, or she is going to the hospital to get better. Hortensia wrapped Mama in blankets, and Alfonso drove them to Kern General Hospital in Bakersfield. The nurses would let Esperanza stay with Mama only a few minutes, and when Esperanza kissed her goodbye, Mama didn't say a word. She just shut her eyes and drifted off to sleep. Riding home in the truck that evening, Esperanza stared straight into the alley of light made by the truck's headlamps, feeling as if she were in a trance. Hortensia, what did the doctor mean when he said Mama was depressed? In only a few months, she has lost her husband, her home, her money, and she is separated from her mother. That is a lot of strain on her body to cope with so many emotions in a short time. Sometimes sadness and worry can make a person sicker. Your mother was very strong through your father's death and her journey ahead. For you. But when she got sick, everything became too much for her. Think of how helpless she must feel. Hortensia took out her handkerchief and blew her nose, too upset to continue. Esperanza felt like she had failed Mama in some way and wanted to make it up to her. Mama had been strong for her. Now it was her turn to be strong for Mama. She must show her that she didn't need to worry anymore. But how? Abuelita. I must write to Abuelita. Hortensia shook her head. I'm sure your uncles are still watching everything that goes in and out of the convent. Probably the post office too. Maybe we can find someone going to Aguas Calientes who can carry a letter. I have to do something, said Esperanza, holding back tears. Hortensia put her arm around Esperanza. Don't worry, she said. The doctors and nurses know what she needs, and we will take care of one another. Esperanza didn't say what she really thought, that Mama really needed Abuelita. Because of sadness, if sadness was making Mama sicker, then maybe some happiness would make her better. She just had to figure out a way to get her here. When she got back to camp, she went behind the cabin to pray in front of the washtub grotto. Someone had knit a shawl and draped it over Our Lady's shoulder, and the sweetness of the gesture made Esperanza cry. Please, she thought, she said through her tears, I promised Abuelita I would take care of Mama. Show me how I can help her. I'm going to pause for a second. Think of something else we could write down as evidence that you can be strong no matter what. I'll give you a couple minutes or a couple seconds to write that down. Pause if you need more time. Okay, something that I would write down is that Esperanza is determined to be strong for Mama. So at first, Mama was strong for her, and now Esperanza says she's going to be strong for Mama. So again, it says Esperanza is determined to be strong for Mama. We're going to read one more page today. Oh, 2 more pages. The next day, Esperanza, we're at the bottom of page 164. Sorry. The next day, Esperanza pulled a heavy shawl around her shoulders and waited for Miguel to come home from the fields. She paced in the area where their trucks unloaded and wrapped the wool tighter against the early winter cold. She'd been thinking all day about what to do. Ever since Mama had first become sick over a month ago, they had no money coming in. The doctor's bills and medicines had used up most of what they'd saved. Now there were more bills. Alfonso and Hortensia offered to help, but they had done so much already, and they did not have much to spare. Besides, she could not accept their charity forever. Abuelita's ankles was probably healed by now, and if she hadn't been able to get her money out of Tio Luis's bank, then she would have no money with which to travel. If Esperanza could somehow get money to Abuelita, then maybe she could come sooner. When Miguel jumped off one of the trucks, she called to him. What have I done to deserve this honor, mi reina? He said, smiling and walking towards her. Please, Miguel, no teasing. I need help. I need to work so I can bring Abuelita to Mama. He was quiet. Esperanza could tell he was thinking. But what could you do, and who would take care of the babies? I could work in the fields or in the sheds, and Melina and Irene have already offered to watch Pepe and Lupe. It's only men in the fields right now, and you're not old enough to work in the sheds. I am tall, and I'll wear my hair up. They won't know. The problem is that it's the wrong time of year. They aren't packing anything right now, not until asparagus in the spring. My mother and Josefina are going to cut potato eyes for the next 3 weeks. Maybe you can go with them. But that is just 3 weeks, said Esperanza. I need more work than that. Anza, if you are good at cutting potato eyes, they will hire you to tie grapes. If you are good at tying grapes, they will hire you for asparagus. That's how it works. If you're good at one thing, they will hire you for another. She nodded. Can you tell me one more thing, Miguel? Claro, certainly. What are potato eyes? That's where we're going to stop for today. I want you, in your notebook, to write down one more piece of evidence that shows how Esperanza is being strong. I'm not going to write it on the board because I want you to come up with it without my help. And then a challenge for you would be to write that piece of evidence as a comment on this post so that your class can also see what you're thinking. You guys can have a little more interaction with each other. That's all I have for you in reading today. I love seeing some of you on the video chat on Wednesday morning, and I hope to see you guys again next Wednesday morning just so we can catch up and pray for one another and ask about any assignments. Okay, have a wonderful rest of your day, a good weekend, and a very happy Easter. See you later, 6th grade.